Good morning, you're very welcome back. Now our next guest, literary achievements are far and wide. Stop looking at me, Warren. He's a journalist. He's written a memoir and now he can add novelist to his resume. I got through it. I got through it and that's my job done for the morning.
The most amazing thing is he achieved all that despite having
10 siblings. There you go.
Thank you, Derek. Please welcome Seamas with the father, O'Reilly. Hi, Seamas. How are you?
I am very well. It's always nice to be back with you, Tommy.
Well, it's great.
And you as well, Mary.
This is my first time being in the room with you.
Oh, no, is it?
Yeah, I wasn't here the last time.
Well, listen, it's your second book.
It is.
Congratulations. The last one was an absolute cracker and it's lived with me forever. Have it till your mommy died, but it's your new book, prestige drama, but a novel this time around. Yeah. Congratulations. Tell us a bit more about it.
So yeah, it's a novel, which means it's all made up. But basically it's set in my hometown of Derry. It's a funny, angry, book that's about all sorts of stuff from Derry's past, some of the violence, some of the sadder stuff, some of the sort of angrier stuff, but also it's a portrait of, a lot of different characters telling one story. So a sort of big production, a TV production about the Troubles is being made in Derry, and there's a very famous American actress who comes and is going to play one of the lead parts, and she goes missing. And so you've got all these different characters who are like talking about what they think about that, and what they think about the show. Some of them think it's going to be amazing. Some of them think it's going to be just a load of nonsense. Some of them don't care. They just want a job, which is quite a Derry reaction. And so, yeah, hopefully they all interweave and tell a story that kind of comes together in the end.
And there's a character at the heart, because there's about 14 different people. It's told from so many different perspectives. But Diarmid is the writer of this prestige drama. And he's returned home from London. He's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder when he comes back to Derry. You're from Derry and you live in London, Seamas.
This is the terrible thing about writing fiction and putting in a character who has so many of your own attributes. And he's not a particularly likeable character. He's got a chip on his shoulder, as you say. I think he feels bigger and better than everyone one minute, and then he feels like insecure schlub the next. Again, not completely dissimilar to every writer that I know. But the main kind of thrust of the story is obviously those other characters, and he connects some of the tissue. And yes, any similarities with any of my failings are completely incidental. There should be a disclaimer.
It's about the Troubles, and the Troubles in Derry. It's kind of a touchy enough subject still. There's not... People don't talk about it because obviously it was fairly traumatic for an awful lot of people. You grew up through that period as well. Writing a novel like this, are you a bit worried that and particularly with so many characters, you're going to have to take the mickey out of a few of them? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I always did want it to be, satirical and scabrous, and I think that the Northern Irish sense of humour is very dark, and it does sort of a mordant wit, I think. But it was the only way I was going to approach it, because it's the place where I'm from. It's all the people that I know are people who do make fun of everything. And they have that approach to their history, to their families, to the worst thing that ever happened to them. They will be telling jokes about it, 5 seconds later. And so if I could try and capture that sort of energy, that sort of antic energy throughout the book, it might be why the book is so short, because you have to get that rhythm to make sure that it's not overstaying its welcome.
It's difficult, yeah.
I can't explain to you how funny this book is. I had to take about 5 pints of sleepy time tea the other night when I started reading it, because I didn't want to. I just laughed so much. But in the middle of it, it is dark. But you bring up all these questions about this part in history that you're at the tail end of it, right? The Troubles. You say here, when old people here do talk about the good old days, you wouldn't believe it, but I swear to God, pints for £1 in the good old days. You asked after your neighbour's mammy in the good old days. No one locked their doors in the good old days. Never mind the specials were knocking down those doors and scalping people. At least no locks were bust in the good old days. The world killing each other over nothing. You have taken everything, something that is so harsh, and you've made it very pointedly funny.
Oh, well, that was definitely the intention, so I'm delighted. I can leave now.
You've done it. But it is, do you think it's important, because you do wrestle with whose story is this? Is this my story to tell? But also, we do have to keep these things alive.
Yeah, I think we do. I think that's a really good way of putting it. The big part of it was, if the central idea is, oh, we've got these Americans in the book, they're going to make this trashy sort of TV program that doesn't represent the real Derry, the real history. And I think that's a common thing that maybe people from my part of the world might say. But is that any different from the lies that I tell down the pub, or is it different from the way my dad's generation never talked about it at all? Or whose story is it? How do you tell them? And I think in the last few years, I think we've seen a bit of a sea change in people especially people from the north, being able to tell those stories. Younger people, writers even younger than me, who might have been born completely after the ceasefire. And I think that change has been really great. I think you're seeing so much amazing material from Irish and Northern Irish writers about that topic, about that place, because they're not maybe squeamish about it anymore.
Listen, I love an audiobook. You've gone a bit different with this as well, because you have it with so many, like 12, 13, 14 different voices in this, and you've got different actors. You have like a cast to tell each different chapter.
Yes, so the Dermot, the aforementioned writer, I play him because, give the people what they want, my beautiful tones. But then for every other one, we've got a sort of a cast I'm very excited about. So we have Ian McElhatton, who you might know as the Granda from Derry Girls. Yeah. He doesn't get on with Tommy Tiernan.
Okay.
On the show. Okay. And Kathy Keira Clark, also from Derry Girls, she's in there.
Wow.
So it's really great, because building out that cast of characters, finding their voice on the page was such a huge thing. And then I had this supplementary job with the producers of like, I literally have to find their voice,
Yeah.
But the result is it's this kind of a catalogue of their thoughts and their feelings that really is brought to life. So I've been really raving about the audiobook. Amazing. Because I get to listen to the book kind of in a new way. So I hope other people get a chance to as well.
It is such a funny book that is also... Like,
Hold
it's just really good about the fancy one. That's mine when it's dog-eared. It is, honestly, lads, you won't be able to stop laughing, but it also treats with a really serious topic. Can't recommend it highly enough. You're also, like, listen, you never stop writing. You're always writing. You're writing in The Observer, you're writing in The Irish Times, you're writing in The Guardian, all that kind of stuff. You've written a movie. Well,
yes. So about 8 years ago, I did a Twitter thread that kind of got very big about being a bold boy when I was 18. And
who were you in the company of?
I was in the company of the President of Ireland, Mary McAleese. And I was a bit worse for wear. We don't need to get into exactly what the story was, but let's just say I was slightly distracted, tired and emotional while serving drinks to Mary McAleese in an old job. Now, this took off. It's become a very viral thing. And at the time, my friend John Michel, who's a fantastic sort of movie maker, he said, "Here, can I buy that off you to make a movie?" And I was like, brilliant. So we even had a little contract and everything. I thought it was gas. Anyway, about 2 months ago, he comes up to me and says, "Here, I finished the film, short animation, and it's been accepted for a competition in Tribeca." So in June, it's been...
Robert De Niro's Tribeca Film Festival.
And so it's going to be in competition there in 2026. It's leading their animation roster. So... and this is a movie that's been made completely without any kind of cultural funding or grant attachment. So if any cultural bodies want to jump on the bandwagon now that it's been made and is successful and help us get it around
Let's drop a few more names. Who picked it for the film festival?
I believe that would have been Whoopi Goldberg.
Wow.
Yeah, she leads the animation team there. I didn't know.
But
now I do know, and I love her. I think she's got great taste.
Yeah, sure.
And is it Aisling B and Chris O'Dowd?
Yes, so Chris O'Dowd plays me, and Aisling B plays my boss. We did try and get Mary McAleese to just say her one line of dialogue, but she gave us a polite no.
I don't.
And so you're playing Damien, giving people what they want in the book, but Chris O'Dowd's doing it in the...
The book is out now. It's called Prestige Drama. Seamas O'Reilly, a pleasure having you in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I think we got through that. Okay.
You feeling okay?
Well done. Thank you, Seamus. Top round.
How can we make it go viral? I don't know.
Right.